Let me tell you something right now that most people will never admit. Your life is not shaped by your goals. It's shaped by your standards. Not your hopes, not your dreams, not your intentions, your standards. Standards are the invisible rules that govern your decisions. They are the silent voice inside you that says, this is acceptable and this is not. And if your standards are low, you will always be fighting an uphill battle. You will always be chasing. You will always be settling. But if your standards rise, your life rises with them. Let's slow this down for a moment, because this is where everything begins, whether people realize it or not. Your standards are not a list of rules you follow when you feel like being disciplined. Your standards are the invisible architecture of your life. They are the operating system that runs your decisions, your habits, your relationships, your work, your health, your emotions, and ultimately your destiny. And if your standards are low, you will not rise above the level of your own tolerance. Most people think, I'm going to change my life by changing my circumstances. But circumstances are not what shape you. Circumstances are what reveal you. They reveal who you are under pressure, who you are when you're tired, who you are when you're tempted, who you are when nobody is watching. Your standards are not something you put on like a costume. They are something you become. They are not external, they are internal. They are the quiet voice that says, I will not accept this. I will not allow that. I will not settle for less than I'm capable of. And here's the brutal truth. You don't get to the next level by asking for permission. You don't get to the next level by waiting for the perfect moment. You don't get to the next level by hoping you'll suddenly become someone different. You get to the next level by deciding who you are and then living in a way that matches that decision. Your standards are your identity. That means every time you tolerate something beneath you, you are sending a message to your nervous system, to your brain, to your spirit, that this is who you are. And your brain is obedient. Your brain will align with what you repeatedly accept. It will say, this is normal, this is okay, this is how life is supposed to be. And then it will create a life that matches that level of tolerance. So if you want to change your life, you must first change what you will tolerate. You must raise the bar on what you consider acceptable. And the reason this is so powerful is because it doesn't require a huge change in your circumstances. It requires a huge change in your standards. Because your standards are what drive your behavior when you're not motivated. Your standards are what drive your behavior when you're tired. Your standards are what drive your behavior when you're scared. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you said no to something that was comfortable but not aligned with your future? When was the last time you refused a situation that was convenient but not honorable? When was the last time you refused to settle for less than you deserve? Most people can't answer that because they've been conditioned to tolerate the unacceptable. They've been trained to accept what comes easy. They've been trained to accept what is familiar. And they've been trained to accept what feels safe. But here's what I want you to understand. Safety is not the same as growth. Safety is not the same as success. Safety is the opposite of greatness. Greatness requires risk. Greatness requires discomfort. Greatness requires a standard that is higher than what your current environment offers. Your standards are the first line of defense against mediocrity. If you have low standards, mediocrity will become your lifestyle. If you have high standards, excellence will become your habit. And excellence is not a one-time event. Excellence is not something you do once in a while. Excellence is something you do repeatedly. Excellence is what you do when nobody is watching. Excellence is what you do when it costs you. Excellence is what you do when you don't feel like it. But let's get very real here. Raising your standards is not about being perfect. It's not about being rigid. It's not about being hot with yourself. Raising your standards is about honoring yourself. Raising your standards is about deciding that your life matters. Raising your standards is about refusing to live like a victim of your circumstances. It's about refusing to blame the world for your results. It's about taking responsibility for the quality of your life. And when you decide to take responsibility, something powerful happens. Your energy changes, your posture changes, your confidence changes, your voice changes. Because standards are not just mental. Standards are physical. Standards are emotional. Standards are spiritual. Standards are the way you hold yourself in the world. Think about it this way. If you are a person who tolerates disrespect, you will always attract disrespect. If you are a person who tolerates laziness, you will always attract laziness. If you are a person who tolerates excuses, you will always attract excuses. And the moment you raise your standards, the world will respond. People will test you. People will challenge you. People will push back. But that's not a sign that you're doing something wrong. That's a sign that you're doing something right. Because when you raise your standards, you become a new kind of person. And when you become a new kind of person, your old environment will no longer fit. Your old relationships will no longer fit. Your old habits will no longer fit. And that's why people are afraid to raise their standards. They're afraid of the discomfort of change. They're afraid of the fear of being alone. They're afraid of the unknown. But the truth is, the only thing scarier than change is staying the same. And here's the part that most people don't understand. You don't raise your standards by forcing yourself. You raise your standards by choosing yourself. You raise your standards by making a commitment to the person you are becoming. You raise your standards by deciding that you deserve more. And you raise your standards by living in a WA that proves it. So I want you to ask yourself, what are you tolerating right now that is keeping you stuck? What are you accepting that is beneath you? What are you allowing into your life that is limiting your potential? Because the answer to those questions will reveal your current standards. And once you see your standards, you can change them. And here's the beautiful part. Raising your standards is not a one-time event. It's a daily practice. It's a daily decision. It's a daily reminder that you are not here to play small. You are not here to be average. You are not here to be comfortable. You are here to become the highest version of yourself. And when you start living by that standard, everything changes. Your relationships change, your finances change, your health changes, your career changes, your mindset changes, because your standards become the foundation of everything you do. So I want you to commit to this. You will no longer accept anything that is not aligned with your future. You will no longer settle for comfort over growth. You will no longer tolerate the voice inside you that says, you're not enough. You will no longer allow the world to define your worth. You will become the person who demands excellence from yourself. You will become the person who refuses to settle. You will become the person who knows your value and lives like it, because your standards are not just rules. They are your identity. And once your identity changes, your life changes. Let's talk about something that most people think is just a part of life, but it's actually a choice. You think you're stuck with the way things are because that's what you've always known. You think you're stuck with the people around you because you've been around them for years. You think you're stuck with the habits you've built because that's just how you are. But that's not truth. That's comfort disguised as reality. And if you want to raise your standards, you have to understand something fundamental. The moment you decide what you will no longer tolerate, you change the entire game. Now listen carefully. Raising the bar on your non-negotiables is not about being rigid or unkind. It's not about becoming cold or unforgiving. It's about becoming clear. It's about being honest with yourself about what you deserve, because the truth is your life is shaped by your boundaries, and boundaries are not there to keep people out. Boundaries are there to keep you in alignment with who you are becoming. When you don't have non-negotiables, you become a person who is easily swayed. You become a person who is influenced by other people's opinions. You become a person who is controlled by circumstances. You become a person who lives by default, not by design. And the problem with that is not just that you're living a life that's less than you're capable of. The problem is that you're training your brain to accept less. So what are non-negotiables? They are the things you will not compromise on no matter what. They are the standards that you refuse to lower, even when it's convenient, even when it's comfortable, even when it's easier to go along with the crowd. Non-negotiables are the values that you live by when nobody is watching. They are the rules that you live by when you are under pressure. They are the lines in the sand that say this far and no further. And here's the thing. Your non-negotiables are not something you announce to the world. You don't need to post them on social media. You don't need to tell everyone, because non-negotiables are not about impressing others. They're about honoring yourself. They're about living in a way that makes you proud of the person you're becoming. Now, let me ask you something. When you look at your life right now, what are the things you've been tolerating? What are the things you've been allowing because you don't want to be seen as difficult? What are the things you've been accepting because you don't want to be alone? What are the things you've been settling for because you don't think you deserve better? The moment you become aware of those things, you have the power to change them, because awareness is the first step, and the next step is decision. You decide what you will not tolerate anymore. You decide what is no longer acceptable. You decide what kind of life you will live. And let me tell you, this is not easy. It's not easy because it requires courage. It requires strength. It requires discipline. It requires the willingness to feel the discomfort of growth. But if you want to raise your standards, you must be willing to feel that discomfort, because discomfort is the cost of transformation. And transformation is what you want. Not comfort, not safety, not ease, transformation. So here's what you do. You make a list of your non-negotiables. And I'm not talking about superficial things. I'm talking about the deep stuff, the things that matter, the things that define your character, the things that will shape your future, the things that will determine whether you become the person you're meant to be. Maybe one of your non-negotiables is respect. You refuse to be treated like an option. You refuse to be spoken to in a way that diminishes you. You refuse to be manipulated or controlled. You refuse to be taken for granted because you know your worth. You know that you deserve to be treated with dignity, and you will not accept anything less. Maybe one of your non-negotiables is integrity. You refuse to compromise your values for short-term gain. You refuse to lie, cheat, or deceive. You refuse to cut corners. You refuse to take the easy way out because you know that your character is more important than your comfort. And you know that your reputation is built by the choices you make when nobody is watching. Maybe one of your non-negotiables is discipline. You refuse to let your emotions control your decisions. You refuse to allow your mood to determine your actions. You refuse to give in to procrastination. You refuse to let laziness dictate your future because you know that discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Maybe one of your non-negotiables is growth. You refuse to stay in a state of stagnation. You refuse to remain comfortable in mediocrity. You refuse to settle for a life that is less than your potential because you know that growth is not optional. Growth is essential. Growth is the only way you become more than you are. Now, I want to be very clear about something. Non-negotiables are not about being perfect. They are not about being harsh. They're about being real. They're about being honest with yourself. They are about setting a standard that matches your potential because when you set non-negotiables, you are not just creating rules. You are creating a life. And when you create a life with non-negotiables, you will begin to notice something powerful. People will respect you more. People will take you more seriously. People will treat you differently, not because you demanded it, but because you became a person who commands it, because your standards are reflected in your actions, because you are no longer willing to accept anything less than what you deserve. And here's the part that most people miss. The world will test your non-negotiables. The world will challenge you. The world will push back. The world will tempt you to compromise. And you will have moments where you will want to lower your standards because it's easier, it's safer, it's more comfortable. But that's when your character is being forged. That's when your standards are being strengthened. So when you feel that pressure, when you feel that temptation, when you feel that urge to settle, I want you to remember something. You are not a product of your circumstance. You are a product of your decisions. And the decision you make in that moment will determine the direction of your life. You must decide that your standards are not negotiable. You must decide that you will not compromise your future for temporary comfort. You must decide that you will not sacrifice your integrity for approval. You must decide that you will not settle for less than you deserve. Because when you raise the bar on your non-negotiables, you are raising the bar on your life. You are raising the bar on your relationships. You are raising the bar on your success. You are raising the bar on your future. And you are telling the world, and more importantly yourself, that you are worth it. So now, I want you to make a promise, not to anyone else, but to yourself. A promise that you will no longer tolerate what is beneath you. A promise that you will no longer compromise your standards for convenience. A promise that you will no longer settle for less than your potential. A promise that you will become the person who lives by your highest values. Because when you do that, you don't just raise your standards, you raise your life. Let's get real about this next point, because it's the difference between people who talk about change and people who actually create it. Most people think the problem is motivation. They think the problem is inspiration. They think the problem is that they just don't feel like doing it. So they wait. They wait for the mood, they wait for the moment, they wait for the energy, they wait for the sign from the universe, and while they wait, their life stays the same. Because the truth is, motivation is a luxury, motivation is a feeling, and feelings are unpredictable. They come and go like the weather. Some days you wake up feeling unstoppable, and other days you wake up feeling like you can't even get out of bed. And if your life depends on how you feel, then your life will always be fragile. But here's what separates the winner. RS from the rest. Winners don't live based on feelings. Winners live based on commitments. Because a commitment is not a feeling. A commitment is a decision. A commitment is a promise. A commitment is something you do even when you don't feel like it. And that's why commitments are powerful. Because commitments don't care about your mood. Commitments don't care about your excuses. Commitments don't care about your comfort. Commitments don't care about your fear. Commitments only care about one thing that you follow through. And follow through is the currency of success. Follow through is what turns dreams into reality. Because dreams without follow through are just fantasies. Dreams without action are just stories you tell yourself to feel better. But commitments create momentum. Commitments create discipline. Commitments create a life that is consistent and unstoppable. So what does it mean to replace excuses with commitments? It means you stop negotiating with yourself. It means why? Stop giving yourself permission to quit. It means you stop allowing your mind to talk you out of what you said you wanted. It means you stop letting temporary discomfort control your future. Because the moment you make a commitment, you become a different person. You become someone who is reliable. You become someone who is trustworthy. You become someone who has integrity. And integrity is not something you talk about. Integrity is something you live. Now, I want you to hear this. Making a commitment is not the same as setting a goal. Goals are important, but goals are external. Goals are about what you want to achieve. Commitments are internal. Commitments are about who you are becoming. Goals are the destination. Commitments are the vehicle. And if the vehicle is weak, you will never reach the destination, no matter how clear the destination is. Think about it. How many times have you said, I'm going to get in shape, or I'm going to start my business, or I'm going to be redisciplined, and then you didn't? And why didn't you? Because you didn't make a commitment. You made a statement. You made a wish. You made a hope. And hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a plan. Hope is not a commitment. A commitment is when you say, I'm doing this no matter what. And here's the thing. Commitments require sacrifice. They require a price. They require a cost. And most people are not willing to pay the price. They want the reward without the work. They want the results without the discipline. They want the transformation without the struggle. But that's not how life works. That's not how growth works. That's not how greatness works. If you want to raise your standards, you must become someone who is willing to pay the price. You must become someone who is willing to do what others won't do. You must become someone who is willing to be uncomfortable in the short term for the sake of long-term success. Because the moment you commit, you are making a decision to pursue your future above your present. And that is the essence of maturity. That is the essence of power. That is the essence of strength. Now, let's talk about the language of commitment. The language of commitment is not I'll try. The language of commitment is not I'll see. The language of commitment is not maybe. The language of commitment is I will. I will do it. I will show up. I will follow through. I will be consistent. I will not quit. I will not allow excuses to control my life. And when you speak like that, your body listens, your mind listens, your spirit listens, because your language is shaping your identity. And your identity is what determines your standards. When you speak like a committed person, you start acting like a committed person. And when you act like a committed person, your life starts reflecting it. You start showing up on time, you start taking responsibility, you start making better choices, you start refusing to settle, you start refusing to compromise. You start becoming someone who is unstoppable. But let's be honest, commitment is not always easy. There will be days when you feel tired. There will be days when you feel overwhelmed. There will be days when you feel like you've given everything and you have nothing left. There will be days when you feel like you want to give up. And that is exactly when your commitment matters the most. Because commitment is not tested when things are easy. Commitment is tested when things are hard. Commitment is tested when you don't feel like it. Commitment is tested when your emotions are trying to sabotage you. So when you feel that urge to quit, I want you to remember something. You are not building a life based on feelings. You are building a life based on commitment. You are building a life based on who you are becoming. And the person you are becoming is someone who doesn't give up. The person you are becoming is someone who keeps going even when it's tough. The person you are becoming is someone who knows that the pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts forever. And here's the beautiful thing about commitment. Once you commit, you start to see yourself differently. You start to see your potential. You start to see your power. You start to see your ability to create your life. And that changes everything. Because when you commit, you are not just changing your behavior, you are changing your identity. You are becoming the kind of person who does what they say they will do. So I want you to make a decision right now, not a wish, not a hope, not a maybe, a decision, a commitment, a promise to yourself that you will no longer let excuses control your life, a promise to yourself that you will show up even when you don't feel like it, a promise to yourself that you will follow through no matter what, a promise to yourself that you will become the person who keeps their word. Because when you replace excuses with commitments, you raise your standards. You raise your life, and you become unstoppable. Now listen, because this next point is one of the most powerful and most overlooked keys to raising your standards. If you want to become a person with higher standards, you have to understand that you cannot do it alone, not in the way most people think, not by isolating yourself and trying to willpower your way through life. You have to upgrade your environment and your associations, because the truth is this. Your environment shapes your identity, and your associations shape your expectations. Let me say that again because it's important. Your environment shapes your identity. Your associations shape your expectations. You become the average of the people you spend the most time with. That's not a motivational quote. That's biology. That's psychology. That's the way the human mind works. You are a social creature. You are wired to adapt. You are wired to mirror. You are wired to conform. And if the people around you are living a certain way, your brain will accept that as normal. It will accept that as what? Possible. It will accept that as what you deserve. So if you want higher standards, you must upgrade the people you surround yourself with. You must upgrade the places you spend your time. You must upgrade the content you consume, because your environment is constantly influencing your decisions, your beliefs, and your behavior. And if you are not careful, your environment will pull you down without you even realizing it. Now, I'm not saying you have to abandon everyone in your life. I'm not saying you have to cut off your family or your friends, but I am saying that you have to become intentional about who you spend your time with and how you spend your time. Because if you want to raise your standards, you must be around people who have standards. You must be around people who are committed to growth. You must be around people who push you to become better. You must be around people who challenge you, not people who enable you. Because there's a difference between support and comfort. Support is when someone pushes you to become better. Comfort is when someone makes it easy for you to stay the same. And if you want to raise your standards, you cannot confuse comfort with love. Because love is not about making things easy. Love is about helping you own the best version of yourself. So let's talk about associations. Associations are not just the people you hang out with. Associations are the people you listen to. Associations are the people you follow. Associations are the people you admire. Associations are the people whose opinions matter to you. Associations are the people whose values you absorb. And if your associations are not aligned with your standards, you will never reach the level of success you're capable of. Now, I want to ask you a question. Who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? Are they people who are ambitious? Are they people who are disciplined? Are they people who are building? Are they people who are growing? Or are they people who complain? Are they people who excuse? Are they people who are stuck? Because the truth is, you don't just become like the people around you. You become like the people around you in the ways that you admire and absorb. You will pick up their habits. You will pick up their mindset. You will pick up their standards. You will pick up their language. You will pick up their level of belief. And before you know it, your life will look like theirs. So if you want to raise your standards, you must choose your associations carefully. And it's not just people. It's also your environment, the places you spend your time, the physical space you live in, the energy of your home, the cleanliness of your space, the order of your life, because your environment sends signals to your brain about what you believe you deserve. If your space is cluttered, your mind becomes cluttered. If your space is chaotic, your mind becomes chaotic. If your space is disorganized, your life becomes disorganized. And if your space is low quality, your standards will follow. So if you want higher standards, you must upgrade your environment. You must create a space that supports the person you are becoming. You must create a space that reflects your vision. You must create a space that makes you feel powerful, not powerless. You must create a space that inspires you to show up as your best self. And then there's the content you consume, because your mind is like a sponge. It absorbs whatever you feed it. If you feed your mind with negativity, fear, and drama, your standards will drop. If you feed your mind with excuses, your standards will drop. If you feed your mind with laziness, your standards will drop. But if you feed your mind with knowledge, with growth, with inspiration, with wisdom, your standards will rise. So I want you to be intentional about what you allow into your mind, because the content you consume is shaping your beliefs. Your beliefs shape your actions. Your actions shape your results, and your results shape your life. So if you want to raise your standards, you must be intentional about what you feed your mind. Now, let's be clear, upgrading your environment and associations is not about being perfect. It's not about being judgmental. It's not about becoming arrogant. It's about becoming intentional. It's about deciding that you will no longer allow low-quality energy into your life. It's about deciding that you will no longer be influenced by people who are not committed to growth. It's about deciding that you will no longer tolerate environments that keep you stuck. Because if you want to raise your standards, you must raise the level of the people around you. You must raise the level of the places you spend your time. You must raise the level of the content you consume. And you must raise the level of the energy you allow into your life. And when you do that, something powerful happens. You begin to see yourself differently. You begin to believe differently. You begin to act differently, because your environment is no longer pulling you down. Your environment is pushing you forward. Your environment is supporting your growth. Your environment is reflecting your standards. So I want you to ask yourself right now, what in your environment is holding you back? What in your associations is keeping you small? What in your daily life is not aligned with the person you're becoming? Because once you identify it, you can change it. You can upgrade it. You can raise the level of your life. And when you raise the level of your life, you raise your standards, you raise your identity, you raise your future. You become a person who demands excellence, not just from the world, but from yourself. And that is the path to greatness. Because the people you surround yourself with and the environment you live in will either lift you up or drag you down. And the choice is yours. Now let's talk about something that people don't want to admit, because it's uncomfortable and it's raw, and it hits at the heart of why most people stay stuck. You can have all the knowledge in the world, you can have all the strategies, you can have all the motivation, but if you don't master your emotions and your responses, your standard, DS will always collapse the moment life gets real. Because here's the truth. Life will always test you. Life will always push you. Life will always challenge you.